I'm Danny, and this is the Scream Princess podcast. I'm joined by a very old friend of mine, Liam Regan.
Hey.
Liam is the president of the Blu-ray label Refuse Films. He's the creator of the My Bloody Banjo Saga, and I'm wearing vintage banjo swag. And he's a
Mhm.
member of the Troma team. So, Liam, how are you doing?
I'm surviving on 2 hours sleep, but apart from that, I'm doing great.
Well, thank you for being a trooper and coming on.
Of course.
And actually, I don't know which order I'm going to be putting these out in, but this is actually the first one. So, I mean, this could technologically go completely wrong because the tech genius I am not. But I'm hoping it all works out.
So I'm kind of popping your cherry in a way, right?
You are, which is, I feel like speaking about a film like Banjo, almost to
Mm.
begin with, I feel like that kind of fits the theme here.
Yeah, no, there was definitely a pop.
There
Uh,
is definitely a pop.
yeah, there's.
So Liam has been a lifelong horror fan. Liam, what were your kind of early influences and kind of what kind of made you go down the horror route?
Sure. Well, my mum was watching Whatever Happened to Baby Jane with Betty Davis, and I was peering down the landing watching it, and it was probably one of the bleakest and darkest movies I've ever seen. And growing up in the late 80s and 90s, I was essentially a video shop kid. I was very my parents were very overprotective, so I wasn't allowed on the street. So what I had was the local video shop, and I just remember always getting goosebumps when I walked into the horror aisle and I saw, artwork by the likes of Graham Humphreys, for example. I remember vividly a Nightmare on Elm Street Part Two: Freddy's Revenge, the actual the video cover art that Graham Humphreys did with the school bus at the bottom.
Did he
That really,
do that?
yeah, he did.
Oh,
Yes, it's a
he doesn't
fantastic.
look like old enough to have done that. Like,
Graham Humphreys?
yeah,
I guess I guess he's timeless, right?
he is
Must be a
timeless.
vampire. I don't know. He must have it must have the fountain of youth somewhere, right? But
There's a
no, he
picture in his attic somewhere.
yes, exactly. But yeah, like being in the horror section would just make my imagination run wild. And I guess, I was a kid that was allowed to rent 15 rated movies, but I wasn't allowed to rent 18 rated movies. So like, but I think by the tender age of 9 years old, I was allowed to watch 18 rated movies. So obviously that's fantastic parenting.
Yeah, so the first horror film then that you watched is Whatever Happened to Baby Jane? Does that class as a horror film?
I think so. I mean, it's
I
pretty
mean,
horrific.
it's horrific. It's not. I think it's not what people would think of when they think like straight up horror, but it's very dark.
Yeah, for sure. And that's my whole kind of gimmick.
Mm,
Is what I make personally, I wouldn't class as horror, but it's
yeah,
it has horrific elements. And I think the best thing about horror is there's so many subgenres. There's
yeah.
horror comedy, there's you know sorry, I'm running on 2 hours sleep, so I can't think, but there's so many subgenres that none of them are coming to mind right now, but
Yeah,
I'm
well,
sure.
you've got the slashers and you've got the zombie movies, and
There you go. This is someone speaking right now that's probably had more than 2 hours worth of sleep, so there we go, Danny.
just about. Although I do have kittens, and they are quite vexing at night. They leave you alone all day, and then in the middle of the night, the boy one, he purrs like a motorbike, and he wakes you up, and he just wants to be stroked for 10 minutes, and then you can go back to sleep, and then he'll do it again at about 5 o'clock. So yeah,
Well, as long as he's feline fine, then that's all that
yes,
matters,
feline fine. Yes. I've
really.
shut them out actually because I've got a Christmas tree in here and they're going bonkers.
Oh yeah, cats love Christmas trees, right? You know.
So that was kind of the first kind of foray into watching horror. And then how did what made you decide that that's what you want to do? Like you want to kind of go and you want to make movies. Like, did you begin with the writing or were you always writing or were you just like, did you know that's exactly where you wanted to go?
Well, growing up, then my favorite movies were like Gremlins 2 and Ghostbusters 2, and then I was really into the like the Child's Play franchise. So I saw
Mhm.
that when it was on Sky Movies Plus because we were middle class enough to have Sky TV, which is
Yeah, I
always
didn't have Sky TV.
that's
So
because you weren't middle class enough. I
no,
mean,
I
you sound
wasn't.
middle
I
class.
wasn't. We only had one TV in the house. Can you
See,
imagine
this is what I
saying that to
mean.
kids these days? They only had
The
one
middle.
TV in the house.
That's yeah. Well, no, we have at least two or three. This is middle class. Also has many subgenres. It sounds like so.
Yes.
But yeah, I don't know. Like, I like the idea of genre tropes. I mean, you got sex, blood, foul language, toilet humor. I grew up with that, and I guess the creative part of me always wanted to make my own film. There's just something about watching a good film when I was younger where I was like, oh, I wish I made that movie, or especially the segue when I first watched the Troma movie, I was like, wow, these guys, they're using slapstick violence. And I love slapstick comedy. I grew up watching, Rick Mail and Ed Edmondson in Bottom. So, with Troma, they mixed the slapstick with the ultra violence, which I saw in horror. And it was just like a match made in heaven because, it made me look at these movies that, they had a budget, but they were very much lower than what I was used to, the Hollywood standard, the studio system movies. So I guess when I was like 10, 11, I just started writing film title ideas, and you know, and here I am.
Here you are. I'm like that. I have like a million notebooks all over the place, and
Mm,
I'll think of like, oh, here, a title will come into my head, and I write all these titles. Like, I probably in my lifetime, I will never be able to make all of these movies, but I've got some great titles. So
mhm.
waiting to be written, waiting to be made. And
Yeah, no, I
actually, talking
mean,
of Troma, I watched my first Troma movie with you.
really, which
It
one was
was
that?
Poultrygeist. Was it
You mean
Return of the Chicken Dead or something?
Poltergeist? Yeah, that's
It was
Poltergeist Night
at
of the.
I'm sure it was at the Prince Charles Cinema in Leicester Square in London, and we went along. And I don't know if that's where I met Lloyd or if I'd met him on Banjo. I can't remember which way round it went.
Yeah, I may have been. It was definitely around that time.
Hmm.
But yeah, Poltergeist is great, and Poltergeist. I mean, I love musicals anyway. I mean, I grew up going to the West End as a kid. Andrew Lloyd
Because
Webber,
middle
etc.
class.
So yeah, I mean, you can't get much more middle class than that. So Poltergeist is great, but Troma to me, I mean, the reason why we're speaking right now is because of Troma, because they show, especially Lloyd Kaufman, who is the co-president of Troma Entertainment, the longest running the longest running independent film studio, running 50 years, in fact, this year,
Wow.
and yeah, it's incredible. So without Troma, we definitely wouldn't be talking because
Yeah.
no one really supports filmmakers like Lloyd Kaufman. He really champions rough,
Mhm.
diamonds in the rough, if you will. And people say don't meet your heroes, but that's probably because your hero isn't Lloyd Kaufman. He's been
Yes.
so. But no, yeah, I guess that's when we first met. I mean, I know that we had a mutual friend, and you were in a few films like what was it?
What
What
was
was
it?
the webcam movie called? The
Oh, a serial caller.
right, yes, I think that's
Yeah.
when I first saw you was in Serial
Oh
Call.
yeah, the film.
And
So that was the film I wrote, and it was one. I know I hate remakes, but
mm,
because it got butchered so much from my
I
original
heard.
script, I would love to remake that film with. I mean, I can't even remember whether I have no clue where the original script would be.
Mm.
But I'd love to remake that with my original idea. But yeah, I think that you must have seen that.
Yeah, well, I made the Banjo the short film in 2012. Then I did a fake trailer, and I cast my ex girlfriend Roxy as the role of Deets. And I think when we were making the movie, we wanted to get someone who's obviously been on the screen before, and and Roxy was great as
Mm.
Deets. By the way, she was a really good Deets. But I feel like you really solidified the character so much that I brought her back for the sequel. But
Yes,
I knew,
after she
I
was
knew it.
killed off and she still came back. Well,
Well,
we're
yeah.
going to go into all of this because she was killed off, then it wasn't used, and it was used in the director's cut. So this is all something that we're going to kind of cover. But that's the joys of actually being an independent filmmaker and making your movie. You get to make
Mm,
that decision. You get to go, actually, you know what? Midway through filming, we were going to kill you, but now we're not. Like you can, that's a great thing about like doing everything yourself and being completely in charge that you can kind of make these split second decisions where you don't have anybody over your head saying, no, this is what we're doing, this is the only way we're doing it, and this you kind of stuck. So you had kind of a lot of creative control. And I think between doing the movies that you've done, like from Banjo, which was then My Bloody Banjo, and again we'll talk about that. And then to Eating Miss Campbell. Eating Miss Campbell's like you've learned so much, and it's like a much glossier, kind of polished
mm, hmm.
film. So I mean, I can't wait to see kind of what the next one is. But this is like jumping ahead of ourselves again here. Um, so Banjo then. Was the Banjo short? Was that the first short you'd made, or had you done I mean, did you go to a film school? Like, did you train? Like, how did you kind of get into actually then being able to, make Banjo?
So I studied film production at college for 3 or 4 years. However, my ideas were always, and understandably, my ideas were too out there
Mhm.
for a lot of people to get behind, which I completely, I mean, back then when I was 16, 17, I'm like, how dare they not appreciate this excellence right here, this genius, of
I often
wanting
feel
to.
like that.
Yeah, of course. We're just underappreciated scholars. That's what we are, Danny. But so yeah, but to be fair, college was fantastic. I learned a lot, but really, my film school came from like listening to audio commentaries on DVDs growing up. Because when I was like 14, 15, and I had a part-time job working at a video shop, I had disposable income, and because of that, I was able to import a lot of Region 1 DVDs, and a lot of them had the special features, and a lot of them had the filmmakers talking. And, I think I learned a lot from that. And then reading books like Lloyd Kaufman has a series of filmmaking books that really
I
helped.
have I
Uh,
have How to Make Your Own Damn Movie.
oh, that's great.
I
That's a
have
great
that one.
book.
I have
That's,
one.
yeah, that's great. That was it's a very good book, in fact.
Mm.
And, so that watching making of documentaries, and then I decided to drop out of college to get a full-time job. So I worked in a call center for many years. In fact, how long did I work in a call center for? I think I worked in a call center for almost 20 years, in fact, and obviously Banjo is set in an office, and that obviously where I was working, was a huge inspiration. But the whole I guess you could say the seed of Banjo happened when I had unprotected sex with a girlfriend at the time. And
I was going to ask this, but you've gone straight into it.
yeah, I mean, look, yeah, why not? So I, it was a very passionate love making. It was like kind of like we were kind of breaking up at the time, so it was kind of like like, I don't
Angry
know.
sex.
Yeah, yeah, but in a nice way, in a consensual way.
Mm.
So, obviously, I felt an internal pop, and there was blood everywhere. She thought she was on a period. I was like, oh, no worries, I'll just clean myself up. And I still had blood protruding from from the helmet of the penis. The actual technical term for a banjo is the frenulum. In fact, so when you tear the frenulum, the urban dictionary kind of slang, the British slang is banjo string, and I didn't know at the time. So the next day, me and my ex Sarah, we're very good friends to this day. I was saying, well, what happened last night might make for a good idea for a horror film. And then when we split up, I was like, well, what do I have now? Because when you're younger in your 20s, and I feel like growing up in the 90s and everything, I felt like, okay, you go to college, you meet someone, you marry, you have kids, you die. Okay. And like, so obviously, I used to be a very, I was always looking for somebody when I
Mhm.
was younger. Now, your priorities change. But, I thought it was always the end, my God, she broke up with me. What the hell do I have? So then because I was working at a call center in Sheffield at the time, I used to get the train in at like 5:30 a.m., 6 a.m., because it would get really, really busy. But I would kill time in Starbucks for like a couple of hours in the morning before starting work. And, I read two books over and over again and studied them. One of them is called Save the Cat by Blake Snyder. It's a great book on
Yeah.
screenwriting. And the other one is Screenplay by Sid Field. Both guys have passed away now, but without them, I don't think I'd be able to conquer writing a script, because writing a script is kind of like climbing a mountain. You just don't know kind of like when it's going to end or where to go. And also, it's kind of like, where do I begin with a script? But these books, they really help you with like a blueprint, a map. Like, okay, this is what should happen on like page 10. This is what should happen on page 25.
Mhm.
And because everything's page per minute, so
Yeah.
10 minutes into a movie, the catalyst happens. 25 minutes into the movie, you go into Act 2, and then Act 2's a lot of like conflict between your protagonists, and you got a B story there. And then from the 60-minute mark to the 90-minute mark, then you're Act 3, and you're trying to combine all the B plots together and the C plots, and
Mhm.
then you have the payoff and yada yada yada. So,
That's how you're supposed to do it. I'm like, I'll just write some scenes,
well,
chuck them
people can do
together,
that.
hope it works.
Yeah, well, that's the thing with the screenwriting or being a creative or whatever,
Yeah.
is there's no rules to this. Like, there's really no rules. It's whatever works for you. Some people can start writing a script and just write it from page 1 to
Yeah.
page 110. I can't do that. I need to do a breakdown of, okay, this is what happens in scene 1, scene 2, scene
Yeah.
3. And then, I'll finally find the story. But like Banjo, I think went through like 14, 15 different drafts. I
Mhm.
remember the earlier drafts were really disgusting, to a point where, I was like, oh, maybe we can't show this to like potential cast members just yet, because they might get
Well, I
some
have to
nice.
say, when the film Banjo was first mentioned to me, I didn't know what the whole banjo string was. So I was like, what's a film about a banjo? Like it's like a musical instrument. I didn't get it until I read
Right.
the script, and I was like, oh, oh. And yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's great to be able to have used your misfortune to, for a good cause. So it's
Well,
like, I mean, it must have hurt, but it's kind of worth it in the end.
I mean, to me, the idea of someone snapping like the frenulum on the penis during sex is kind of funny in a way. And I'm like, well, there's lots of blood, so that kind of works for horror. So we did the short film in 2012, and it was just answer. We've gone all around the houses here, but no, Banjo wasn't the first short film I did. I did make other stuff in college and everything, but I just thought, well, what would be more ridiculous than a feature length movie of this? And I was like, okay. And I started writing, and obviously, I extended your character, Deeks
Mhm.
Montgomery, and Peltzer, and I created this whole like universe and with
Yeah.
different characters. And for a first movie, it cost me £15,000, which is
Right.
really cheap.
Hmm.
Looking back, it was a lot of money, and it is a lot of money. But for a film, it's not, and it's still not a
No.
lot of money. But a lot of people didn't, take their full day rate. A lot of people
Yeah.
came in, did favors, whatever means necessary. I had so much support on that movie that without them, the movie would never have been made.
Well,
I
this is
think.
it. When people don't know what goes into making a movie, it's not just, the cast, it's like the catering, and it's like the costume,
Oh,
and it's the makeup, and it's the people that have to be there, plus what the things cost, plus, everyone's on
yeah,
a different day rate. It's the travel, it's the accommodation. I mean, we lived on a farm, didn't we? We lived on a farm for a while, and I
yeah.
filmed all over, was it South Yorkshire, North Yorkshire,
South Yorkshire,
South
yeah, I
Yorkshire.
guess it was South Yorkshire. Yeah, it was Penistone, or as some people call
Yeah.
it, Penis Town or Penis
Well, I
Town.
feel like, yeah, after the film, it should be called Penis Town.
I think so. I mean,
Yeah.
we
But
pretty
I'm
much.
filming in Barnsley and Rotherham, and I feel like we traveled about a lot. And I spent a lot of time chatting to cows whilst drinking cups of tea in the morning.
Yeah, I mean, look, it was
I
a.
took from that.
I, I really enjoyed being on that farm. It felt like we had cast in one
Yeah.
building and the crew in the other, and it just felt like, I don't know, like summer camp in a way. It was really. I mean, it was all kind of new to me. I mean, I worked
Yeah.
on Troma productions before, but I've never worked on a set of such magnitude where I'm the boss, and I was green as hell. I was still learning, and I'm still learning, and I'm making mistakes, maybe more mistakes. But to me, that's the best kind of film school, is just doing it, or
Mhm.
getting as much help as you can by just making coffee on film sets. I mean, that's how I started. So
Yeah.
especially on I used to work on Troma movies. I used to fly myself out to get experience, and I was able to watch how every department would work, and any other film school would probably ask like 90, 100 grand for that.
Mhm.
And, I got it for free. So,
Yeah.
I thought I'd use what I learned on Return to Nukem High, which we shot in 2012 in Buffalo, Niagara. And, I'm like, okay, I'm going to make a movie. And, Banjo, which was later retitled to My Bloody Banjo, became a thing.
And Lloyd Kaufman did come over to shoot some scenes. So
Yeah.
the premise, just a quick like synopsis of Banjo. It's about a guy called Peltzer who is, he's got a girlfriend that bullies him. He loves the girl from work. He's very kind of trodden upon by everybody, and it's kind of his story, and how he has an imaginary friend. So what do you mean? Was it kind of Drop Dead Fred crossed with what would you say if you had to
So
just
I mean, yeah, when I used to pitch the movie, I always used to say like Drop Dead Fred meets Basket Case, but it's
there
more
you
of
go.
a yeah, it's more of a, like, I'd say, like, if Troma made Drop Dead Fred, that's
Mhm.
probably the better, I'm even lost for words. Sorry, that's probably the best description of the movie. But yeah, I mean, it was a nightmare to make, but any independent production's a nightmare. I
Yeah.
mean, in fact, there's a great documentary on the Blu-ray of My Bloody Banjo where you see me at 29 years old, just wanting to blow his brains out, because I was, back then I was very insecure, and then, if in many ways the character of Peltzer, who's essentially this wimp who doesn't stand up for himself, that was me for many years. And then you make a couple of films, and then you learn not to take any shit.
Yeah. We had the guy playing the imaginary friend was actually the DOP. So
Yeah.
when he wasn't actually on screen, he was behind the cam, like he was there with the camera, but with full prosthetic makeup on. So he had this big nose and this kind of mask piece. And it was in the summer. Right? So it was warm, and it was, and especially when you're on a film set, but you're not in a massive film studio. You're in cottages, you're filming in rooms. So what you see on screen, behind that you've got cameras, you've got lights everywhere, you've got about 10 people in the room, so the heat kind of
Oh
builds.
yeah.
So it's not like, oh yeah, it's a nice summer's day and it's a bit breezy. It's like everybody's roasting, and he was like in full kind of latex, which was just crazy. But then it's funny him giving you directions. And I know at one point there was there was a prosthetic penis which had to
Mm,
squirt blood into
for
my
Shrek.
face from
Mm,
Peltzer, and but to get the right angle, the cameraman really had to hold it. And so
mm.
I mean you didn't really, did you see it a close up? So did you know? Yeah, I think you did, didn't you? Did you? So
Sorry,
did you see the penis squirting the blood? Because otherwise it was
uh,
anyone could have done it. But yeah, so the DOP was just sat there and he was
mm,
like shaking his head like, I can't believe I'm doing this.
yeah,
Squirting
man,
blood
it
into
was
my face.
it was funny. Yeah, no, the penis wasn't in shot, so we could have
No.
really done it anyway. But
Could have been a water pistol with
it
fake
could have
water.
been anything. Maybe the cameraman just wanted to be straddled by Danny Thompson. Who knows?
Maybe. Yeah, maybe, maybe. I mean, and that was one of the first scenes as well. So that's another thing that always happens on a film set. The most awkward scenes that you get to do always seem to be scheduled first when you've only just met the rest of the cast, or if you've got to do an awkward scene with somebody. If you'd been working with them for a week and you knew them, and it would be, relax, it'd be funny, it'd be like, okay, whatever. But it's always like the first thing you do with them. So you're still like, I'm really sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to
Yeah,
do that. Sorry. And I know I had to pour some liquid into James, who played Peltz's mouth. And it was
Gaviscon. You poured Gaviscon in his mouth.
well, no, it was mayonnaise, and he doesn't water down mayonnaise, and he doesn't like mayonnaise. So, I mean, I quite like mayonnaise. I'd have been like, bring it on.
Yeah.
It's vegan mayonnaise, but yeah, he didn't like mayonnaise. So I was like, I'm sorry.
Was it
Mayonnaise. And
mayonnaise?
I think there's
I
probably a bit of lube in there as well, just from the item I was pouring it from. So
Yeah.
yeah, I
Well,
can't
no,
imagine it would have been lovely, but
yeah, Gaviscon's kind of pink. Oh, is there like a clear
yeah.
Gaviscon that
No,
looks
this was
like?
when I was pouring the contents of the
Oh, in his mouth. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah.
yes.
Yeah, no, that was a fun. That I mean, that scene. Anything that I don't know, like when you know, I think people think like film sets are kind. You know, when there's like, you know, attractive women on film sets, people think, oh, it must be fun to be on a film. And I'll be honest, the only thing I give a fuck about is this shot in focus? Great, because there's nothing titillating about being on a film set. If anything, you just want to blow your brains out. So unless you're getting like,
But you
you know,
haven't yet, so we're still good.
so
Two major
far,
films down.
yeah, two movies down, and you know, I'm currently planning a third movie. I don't know. I've got a few ideas. I just, you know, it's because I feel like I said a lot with Ian Miss Campbell. I pretty much said everything I needed to
Mm.
say with that movie.
Yeah, I
But
can't wait to
you
start
know,
talking about that. That might be in like part two, but
sure,
yeah, it was yeah, so much fun. Like I mean Banjo was it was like I think it's the first time anyone like even though people had been on many sets, the first time anyone had done a film quite like that. And there is a lot of practical effects. So
yes.
it was a question I kind of got in my head to ask most people like, do you prefer practical effects? Which I feel like you definitely are going to say yes because of the films that you've made. Like pretty much all the effects are practical.
Yeah, no, I mean they are, but you know, films all, but you know, especially Ian Miss Campbell probably had like 140 VFX shots. However, you know, you would never notice them because it's like
Hmm.
hiding a microphone or hiding
Yeah,
something. But when it comes to practical effects, yeah, I mean,
the
you know, I grew up.
gore.
Yeah, yeah. When I grew up watching like slashers from the 80s, you know, they
Mhm.
all have practical effects, and there's just something organic about an actor working with something that's there
Yeah,
rather than you know, because you know, you look at behind the scenes of any big Hollywood movie these
yeah,
days, is A-list actors working with green screen. You know, that's
yeah.
essentially what it is. And I'm like,
And a lot
how
of
the
them
heck?
don't like it. I don't mind. I actually
That's
find it
acting.
quite fun working with something that isn't there because you
Mm,
have to kind of really play. So it's like more like being a child when you're like playing with your cuddly toys and it's more like, if there's something really there, you don't really have to imagine
yeah.
it. You've got something. But I do find it fun, but I can see how like if it's not there, it's not quite, the connect.
Yeah, it's one of the things that to me, if you're a good actor, you'll be able to pull anything off. You
Mm,
know, I do think like if you're a horror fan, like you know, I think you do care about the practical stuff
mm,
because it's what a lot of people grew up on, and I think you know, there's the reason why they're classics. You know, and
mm,
CGI is good as well. So to me, it's all about the storytelling, and if the story requires practical effects, just do practical effects. You know,
yeah.
like Banjo, for example, it was very cheap independent movie, but you know, I needed to. You need gore effects for set pieces. You need, you know,
Mhm.
it's what the genre wants. It's what the fans want. So, but you know, really, what I love about I'm not going to say I love my own movies because that's really arrogant because I don't watch my own movies. Like once you've made a movie and then once you've you know, quality check the fucking Blu-ray, you never want to watch that movie again. Like you never think, oh, maybe I'll watch. You know, no, you've you know, you no longer see it as a movie. You just see it as shots that are put together and like, oh, I could have done this better. I could have done that better. And you're always trying to second guess yourself. So it's like, and I am my own worst critic. But what I do love about independent filmmaking, especially what I do, is I get to make the movie 110% how I want without any other, I mean, look, I take advice. I'm not saying everything I do is you know, no, I do take advice. And you know, because it is at the end of the day, it is it's like an ensemble, it's a collaboration.
Mhm.
Even though I do believe in the French theory of an auteur director. An auteur is like the author of a movie, and that's why I love about having full creative control, which is why I have zero interest in working in the studio system. I do not
Yeah.
want to work in, and I've been to LA, you know, and I have friends in LA who are full-time filmmakers, but I have zero. You know, look, if someone wants to give me a lot of money to make a movie and I get 110% creative control, fantastic. However, if I can't, because at the end of the day, whoever gives you money pulls the strings, and that's how it should be. Which is why I self-finance my own films. I mean, Banjo, I took out credit cards, loans, etc.,
Mhm.
and I was in debt for that movie for well, the movie didn't make any money for the longest time,
Yeah.
and since it came out on Blu-ray, it's made back its budget 4 or 5 times over.
Welcome back to the Screen Princess podcast.
Welcome back, Liam. Or do you know what? This is my first one. So Liam's kind of my, well, I'm learning on the go, and he's changed his name to George Foreman. So I invited him to the meeting, and I was like, who have I invited to the meeting? I was super confused. I wish I had that on record for that moment where my face was like,
Yeah, no, I was in Tesco the other day, and someone were buying a George Foreman grill, and I just thought that's kind of funny. So it's
do you
like, hey,
remember
George.
when they were all the thing? Like it's all about the George Foreman grill. Now it's all about the air fryer, isn't it?
It is, yeah. My sister bought my dad an air fryer 3 years ago for Christmas, and
Mhm.
he's still not opened it. But you
Still
can't
not
teach an
opened
old
it.
man. No, but
I didn't think I needed one. And then my partner brought his, and I was like, oh, actually, it's kind of handy. I still use the oven for most stuff. It's not really a fryer, is it? It's more like an oven. But
you
I
know,
do,
I wouldn't know. I've not
we've
seen one,
not
but
opened it. No, I do use it for some things. If I'm just doing like sausages or something, I'll do it. But
Mhm.
where were we? We were still chatting about Banjo, My Bloody Banjo, and we were talking about the practical effects and the story. I actually was sent by Liam to the makeup, and it was a guy called Paul Weil, who I'd never met before. And this is a time where I was actually binge watching Dexter at the time. So, you know, like with Dexter, they have the kill room and they wrap the person up in all of, they wrap the room in like the plastic and you're wrapped up. So I get to this guy's house and he's had to do a head cast for me. So my original character, she's meant to kind of head melts. And I've never had my head cast before, didn't know what to expect. I was thinking, oh, well, I wear face masks all the time, like a peel off mask. It will be fine. And I get there. He takes me out to the garden shed, which is inside plastic everywhere. And I'm like, oh, they sit me in a chair. They put a bin bag over me. And I'm like, oh my God, this is how I die. So yeah, it was like entering a set of a horror movie. And then when they put this like stuff on me, or they wrapped me all in cling film first, then they put this stuff on me, and I was like, because he didn't put things up my nose, but like you would still have holes, you'd still be able to breathe, but you just feel like you couldn't. So it's like my mouth's covered, my nose is covered, my ears, my eyes. I've got no like, I've got no way of like calling out. So I bust through the plastic and I had to wipe my mouth off. I was like, I can't breathe. So that's why I ended up with a kind of more of a melted mouth. It's just they left me with something so I could at least breathe from somewhere. But
Yeah,
yeah, bonkers. And I've had my face cast since, and I've got to say I don't like it any more than I did then either. I think some people can deal with it really well, and I'm like, and I'm not claustrophobic really in any way, but it's the weirdest experience. And I think because it's like setting, it's like, and you just feel like it's, I don't know, you feel like kind of being enclosed and bizarre.
well, this is why I produce, write, and direct. I could never do anything like that. Never
Well,
do
I
anything
always
like
say when I'm, because I do as well, I do produce and write and direct. I know I always say
that.
like if I'm writing something and I'm going to be in it, I will always take the worst scenes because I
Yeah.
feel like I don't want to ask someone else to do something that I won't do. So I'll be like, well, I'll do that awkward scene.
Yeah. I
And
was just like, well, Danny Thompson will do it because I'll ask nicely, and she did. So
yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, the effects were good. And we actually shot the scene. And it was kind of a messy scene with like a lot of gore. And
we did
then
it twice. You remember we did it
we
twice?
did it twice because you wanted so the house was meant to be quite grand. And then you were like, well, we shot it once, but actually I'd want the house to be even more grand. So we shot it again in another setting. And then it didn't even end up getting used because you ended up keeping me alive for the sequel.
Yeah,
Because I
no,
think you did then use it.
yeah, no, that's right. So, like, I mean, so the original cut of Banjo, the version that played festivals and the
Mhm.
version that was released in America, that's not really my version of Banjo.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I didn't really have, the whole editing of Banjo originally was very much like strained between me and the editor, and it was, I don't know. When I got my hands back on the movie, because I knew what movie it should have been, it's
Mhm.
the movie I directed. I it took many years to bring the film to Blu-ray, and I had to, I sold it to a really crappy American distributor, and I mean they suck so much, and they didn't really market the movie, didn't do anything, but they still bury me in expenses because
Hmm.
that's how distributors work. So when I bought my own rights back, I was like, well, I'll just recut it and release it myself, and I ended up spending around so the production of the movie cost 15 grand. I probably spent another 10 grand in post production, just to make it what I always wanted it to be. And I know I'm really proud of the movie. For a long time I didn't even want to talk about it, and it wasn't for the movie or the performances or anything like that, because I'm very proud of everyone. It just wasn't really my thing at the time.
Hmm.
It just didn't feel like the thing I directed. And now it does, and you can now buy it. It's almost sold out, but you can buy it from refusedfilms.com. We'll probably do a second pressing of it, though, because it's a popular title. But
A director's cut.
yeah, which to me is really the definitive version of the movie. I mean,
Hmm.
there's versions people can watch illegally online, but I tell them, look, just watch it on watch.troma.com, Troma Now. You can, first month's free. You can stream it there. Or if you want to hit me up, I'll just send you a Vimeo link. Or, if you want to send me $24.99, you can buy the Blu-ray from
Yeah.
refusedfilms.com. Or if you want the Bloody Banjo Saga with Ian Miss Campbell, we can get it at a discounted rate. I mean, what more would you want? I mean,
Hmm.
in fact, I got in my office, I have a banjo right here. This is and what's really cool about this is when we were talking earlier about what got me into horror movies, it was the video cover for Nightmare on Elm Street 2: Freddy's Revenge by
Hmm.
Graham Humphries. And then Graham Humphries, many years later, did the My Bloody Banjo
Did
Blu-ray
he
art.
do? So I've been painted by Graham Humphreys.
You did not know that?
I did not know that.
Well,
I
now you
didn't.
do.
No, I didn't know that.
Yes.
Incredible.
There we
Is my
go.
face melting?
Yeah, I
Of course,
mean,
we
yeah,
had Lawrence Harvey in the film, who was incredible. I mean, he's always incredible. But I remember actually like being terrified of him because I'd seen Human Centipede 2. And then it's like, oh, you're going to be living on a farm with him. And I was like, oh no, but it's lovely. I've worked with him so many times since. So I'm not no
but yeah,
longer no longer
you had
frightened.
you had Paul Weil trying to
Yeah,
kill you, suffocate you.
yeah,
You had Lawrence Harvey.
yeah.
Uh,
And
with
plus, we're on a farm, so really, my greatest fear is spiders, and there are loads of them. And I do remember actually coming down one night, and I was actually going to go to bed, and they were like, "Oh, just come have a glass of wine with us." I think it might have been the first night I was there or something. So I was like, "Okay, well, I'll go and put my pajamas on, then I'll come back down." Luckily, I went to put my pajamas on at that point because as I was in the room, there was a spider running across my pillow, and then I screamed, and some boys came up and they saved me. But had I not have gone up at that moment, that spider could have been anywhere, and it could have eaten me while I was sleeping or crawled over my face or done something horrible. So yeah, it was that's the thing about the countryside. I love the countryside, but
mm,
the spiders, and I've just moved, so I've lived in London for 16 years, and you just don't get spiders. Like I had in my flat in 16 years, like three spiders, I think, in my flat in that time. And I've lived here for, well, not even 6 months, and I've had some whoppers, and this is why I got kittens.
there we go, man. The kittens will
Hunters.
eat the spiders.
Yeah.
Yes,
Hunters. And it's
yes.
natural. So I don't feel bad. I don't have to hoover them. The kittens will
No,
get
exactly. It's got to be a perfect place, right?
Yeah, so moving on from Banjo, which is then called My Bloody Banjo because of the distribution, they changed the name.
Well, yeah, but in hindsight, I'm so glad it did change to My Bloody Banjo, because if you Google banjo, you're not going to get my movie.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, if and it's one of the things where even though the distributors suck, I learned a lot from it as well. To
Mm,
the point of I now run my own Blu-ray distribution label. I do it full time. I've been doing it since March full time, and
amazing.
yeah, it's growing really rapidly. I've got to hire people next year so I can sleep. You know.
Mhm. That's amazing. So after Banjo, My Bloody Banjo, I still always call it Banjo because I think that was just
That's
how
fine.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's when I
yeah,
first
yeah.
heard about it. There was a
Of course.
big gap actually between that and Eating Miss Campbell, and then Eating Miss Campbell came about, and then with the filming of that, there was a massive gap because, of course, COVID. So that was like, I think it was like 2 years almost with the hiatus, really. But tell me about Eating Miss Campbell because it's
Yeah. Well. mm,
great. Like
Oh,
it's, do you know what I would say? It's definitely not one for snowflakes, and it's certainly not one to watch if you are easily offended, because pretty much everything in it could offend you if you are. But I loved it.
yeah, I never thought I'd make another movie again. It was a struggle to and that's the reason why I wanted to re-edit Banjo, because I needed to
Mm,
get some financing back. But deep down, I just wanted to make another movie, and I just knew that if I had one more chance, if you had one more crack at it, I'd do it 110% my way without any like someone saying, "Oh, you can't do that. That's a little too far."
yeah.
And to me, with Ian Miss Campbell, I was just like, okay, let's make a movie that's just going to piss off a lot of people and make them feel uncomfortable, because I'm a huge fan of satire, so, especially, and I'm in the camp of you should be able to say anything you want, and
Yeah.
you can't pick and choose. To me, it's like you can make fun of anything and everything,
As long as
because
it's funny. As long as
oh
someone
yeah,
thinks it's funny.
but
I
but
don't
also
mind if people make fun of me if it's funny.
yeah, it is, also it's also very subjective.
Mhm.
Comedy is probably, I think people feel comedy is easy to write, but it's hard. It's very hard
Yeah.
because it's very subjective, and and if you do it broad, then it comes across as silly. So, I wanted to be quite self-referential, like very, so like really lay on thick, the whole meta thing, just because the idea of casting 30-year-olds to play teenagers is a real thing in movies, because
Yeah.
you know uh, older actors are just they've studied the craft more, and they're
Well, they
more
study the
trustworthy.
craft. Also, if you do have teenagers playing teenagers, teenagers are going to act like teenagers. They've just left school. They're young. Like people that are older, you kind of have a bit more work ethic about you. Like you'll turn up on time. You'll know your lines. It's not just with actors. It's like anyone in any kind of job. When you get a
Yeah,
bit older, you have more about you that's kind of serious and willing to work hard. Like when you've just left school, you just want to have fun. So I
yeah,
can totally see why they do it. And also, if everybody's cast like that, like if you had somebody young and somebody, who's, 20 years older playing the same age, it's not going to work. But if the whole cast is cast a bit older, it totally works. Like I even
100.
fell for Grease for all those years, and I watched it the other day, and we were like, how do we think they were at high school? Like some of them were obviously in their 40s, but never questioned it growing up watching Grease ever once.
No, because the film believes in itself, and to me, as long as the movie makes sense in the universe it creates,
Mhm.
like what I make is very hyper reality. It's not grounded, because when I watch a movie, I want to kind of escape from reality. I don't I don't need to. I mean, look, I love gritty, dark, really sadistic stuff, don't get me wrong, I really do. I love films by like Larry Clark and fucking Harmony Korine, like, so they made movies like Kids and Bully, and like just really depressing films
Mhm.
that I really love. But I wanted just to, with Miss Campbell, it was like, okay, let me throw everything at the wall and let's see what sticks. And then I remember writing the second draft of it, I'm like, well, it'd be really cool if VO came back as Mr. Sawyer. Mr. Sawyer's the character in My Bloody Banjo. Obviously, your partner in crime. And then I'm like, you know what? Why don't I just make it a banjo sequel? Because at the end of the day, no one else is going to make a banjo sequel, and also nobody wants a banjo sequel. So why not give people what they don't want? And
But it was kind
I
of a sequel, but not a sequel because
kind of, yeah,
some of the
yeah. Well,
characters are the same, some of the characters are not the same. And it's like, so you're in the world, it was the Hen and Lotta universe. So
mm,
you named it after like the town.
Frank and Lotta.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it was like, it was in the universe, but it's kind of, there's no real timeline, was there? It's not like, well, that happened to them in that one. And then it was kind of,
Well,
you know,
kind of. It's funny, like, because I mean, you can watch both movies on their own. Like, you don't need to watch Banjo to
mhm,
get Ian Campbell, and vice
no.
versa. However, for marketing purposes, to sell, um, uh, saying that they're connected really helps, and they are connected. And to me, I do feel it is a sequel to Banjo, even though people die. I kind of look at it like South Park, where Kenny died, where Kenny used to die every week, and he just come back with no explanation. And
Yeah.
also because. So the lead character in Eating Miss Campbell, Lindsay Crane, Beth Connor, played by Lindsay Crane,
She was
um,
great.
she's great, but she's stuck in a horror movie, and it doesn't matter how many times she kills herself. She wakes up in another horror movie. So in my head, well, Banjo's just another horror movie. So if you die, then Miss Campbell's just another horror movie that you just wake up in as a different character.
Yeah.
And
I
that,
mean, I died in Banjo and I died twice in Eating Miss Campbell.
well, I mean, that says that would say so much about how I felt about working with you on Miss Campbell.
Yeah, he really wanted to kill me off.
Well, I didn't. Maybe the producer
So
did,
much.
but I
Yeah,
didn't.
yeah, some people might have.
I didn't personally because I didn't have any issues. But I was like, "Yo, come back just so I can kill you off again." You
Yeah,
know?
again,
Yeah.
let's do it again. Will I come
Yeah.
back for the third piece? How will you
Well,
kill me again?
I mean, as long as your rate is low, then yeah. But yeah, I don't know, man. Like it's,
I've got
I'm
to say,
really
Deets
proud
is
of.
one of my favorite characters I've
Yeah.
played to this day, and she's one that I think people that have seen it will are kind of are more memorable of my roles.
Mm.
But I loved like how we created her kind of costume, and it was kind of a little bit Cruella de Vil with the houndstooth, but it was like houndstooth and various shades of red was very much and like faux leather and like she was very kind of like it's kind of what's the word? I kind of know what I'm saying. I'm trying to say a word that I don't know what I'm trying to say. I don't know. She looked like a very strict bondage school
authoritarian.
teacher a lot of the time.
Yeah, she did.
Um,
Yeah, and that's
but
exactly. And we worked together on the character a lot, and
mm,
you gave me ideas of what you thought the character should be like, and we vibed a lot.
mm,
And a good a good lesson to independent filmmakers out there is that if you vibe a lot with actors and actresses about the character, then maybe they'll have their own wardrobe, and if they do,
yeah,
you save mucho dollarero.
yeah, yeah. It was super fun. Even now, I see dresses. I'm like, oh, that would be a good Deets dress.
Yeah, we'll bring it back in the third movie, man. I mean, I've got no idea I've got a few. I really want to do stuff about customizable sex dolls because I just find them. Yeah, I watched a
Yes,
movie called I
Deets
watched a movie
the
called.
doll.
Well, yeah, well, maybe, yeah, why not? I mean, there's a
Because she's
market
dead, and
for
that's
that.
how you bring her back.
Living dead girl, yeah, the living dead doll. There we go. She's a living dead doll. There we go, man. So,
And so
so
tell me about the distribution, because again, we're going to I'm going to have to bring you back for like another episode. 'Cause I feel like I
return.
was worrying won't have enough to talk about for an hour, and it's literally we could talk for hours and hours and hours. But tell me
Easy.
about Refuse Films, as in the label now.
Yeah, well, so this is now my full-time job, and we've currently got 5 movies under the label, and next year we're moving to 3 titles per quarter. We've currently just released Cannibal the Musical by Trey Parker, who created South Park, his first movie. It's the world Blu-ray premiere. And we've also put out The Toxic Avenger and Sergeant Kabuki Man NYPD. So we've licensed some Troma classic movies, but we've packed them full of special features. My
Mhm.
Bloody Banjo and Eat Miss Campbell is also on Refuse Films, and we've got quite a few number of like big titles coming out next year, which I'm really very, new and old films, and not just Troma. I mean,
Yeah.
there's some really good. I mean, I love Tron movies, but like there's like movies like to me, Refuse Films now is just like DIY underground filmmaking, but it's
Yeah.
also about transgressive and subversive cinema. So yeah, it's going well. It's going well. I mean, we've just sent out like 700 Cannibal the Musical Blu-rays in the past few days, and I'm on 2 hours sleep, and
7,000, did you just say?
700.
700, that's still a lot. That's a lot.
We've sold. We've got less. So we got 3,000 manufactured, and we have
Mhm.
less than 1,000 remaining.
Oh, so if you
So
want one, you need to get your hands on one now.
you do, yeah, because they'll probably end up triple the price on eBay soon. So
Yes.
I would definitely, 26.99. I wouldn't, yeah, go. Cannibal the Musical's great.
That's the
Toxic Avenger.
thing, like it's 26.99, but you've got like special features on there. And that's what people lack now with just watching things on streaming platforms like, Netflix or Amazon or whatever. You don't get all those special features. You don't get to hear what the director's got to say. You don't get the deleted scenes. You don't get
Mm,
all of that. So really buying Blu-ray, you're getting so much more than just the movie.
totally. And as a guy who I'd say is probably 6 out of 10 when it comes to looks, I'm used to overcompensating. So when it comes to Blu-rays, I'm just packing full of everything.
And this is what you were saying when you grew up and got into film through watching all of these special features and
Mm, yes.
that's it is teaching. It's like a school in itself.
I'm giving back, and anyone that wants to get into filmmaking, feel free to reach out on my socials. It's Refuse Liam, just follow Refuse Films, just reach
Yeah,
out to me.
I'm gonna have a screen at the end with all of your
Excellent.
stuff, so you have to send it all through to me, and I can make sure that everybody's got all of your details and they know how to find you and they know how to buy the Blu-rays.
Yeah, man, money would be great,
Yeah,
I love
money's
money.
always
Well, I'm all about capitalism. What can I say, yeah. Trump's in power, so it's all good. We got Elon Musk and Donald Trump running the world. It's fantastic. I'm a big fan
Oh
of it.
no, this is where you get me cancelled.
I know you're not allowed to have political views unless you're a
It's
fucking
true.
extreme left.
I feel like unless you're an American, we don't really get a say. So I'm not. So it's nothing to do with me. I don't comment.
Well, we're definitely cutting this bit out because no one needs to know that I'm a Republican, or else I'll get cancelled. So I'll
Don't
have
even
to.
know what that is. Well, I've got a
Oh,
little quick fire round.
it's kind of like being a Tory, really.
Oh well. I've
Let's
got
not
a
get
quick fire
political.
round to kind of
Oh
finish
my
up
God,
with. It's not that quick fire because I did give you a heads up.
you
Because
did,
I
but I
know that when
totally
people have done
forgot.
quick fire things with me, I'm like, I don't know, I don't even know my own name anymore. You've put me on the spot. So,
Okay.
what is your favorite scary movie?
Legion, Exorcist 3, directed by William Peter Blatty. It came out in 1990 and it stars Brad Dourif and George C. Scott. It's a masterpiece and it's very scary.
See, I think that's kind of a wild card one because I've not heard of it. Not that I've heard of most movies that I should have, but I love
Yeah,
this.
no,
I'm
it's
going to get something
fantastic.
and go and watch these.
Yeah.
What is your biggest fear?
My biggest fear is listening to voicemails. I hate listening to voicemails. Hey, it's like, why do you want to leave me a voicemail? Like, if something happened, are you mad at me? I don't want to listen. If you want to speak to me, I need to, gauge the tone and everything. So I'm petrified of voicemails. I have my phone on Do Not Disturb a lot these days. And you
Yeah.
know what? Life is great.
Yeah, I mean, I like a text. There's only certain people like that I'd like to ring me. Like if it's somebody I'm working with, they're like, can we have a call and chat about a character or something? Because we chat on the phone, when we're working together, and it's like, yeah, but you've text first, so I know you're going to call me to talk about this. But when people just phone you, you're like
Yeah, I don't know.
looking at
It's
your
like,
phone, willing it to stop ringing.
yeah, it's like, why do you want to phone
Nothing
me?
you
Like,
can't say in text.
I just think everyone's mad at me for some reason. So.
Okay, so popcorn, because this is the movie podcast today. Popcorn, sweet or salted?
Both.
Do you like it when
Yeah,
it's mixed? So it's a surprise every time you put a bit in your mouth. Yeah, I'm the same.
I love having surprises in my mouth. So yes, especially
What
the
would
salted
you have
way.
written on your tombstone?
Um, be right back.
Be right back. Can you do it in the Arnie voice? Oh no, does he
Uh,
say that? No, does he say that? It is Arnie,
no,
isn't it? I'll be back, he
Annie
says.
says. Annie says, "Phone me back." Yes.
He says I'll be back, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not down on my Arnie movies. He hasn't
It's
got
fine. It's cool. I do like Annie though. I think he's great. He's cool.
I'll be right back. That's in Scream.
That's Randy from
Yes.
Scream. That's right.
There we go.
Yeah.
It's a Randy
That's
ref.
it. Well, it was.
Okay, so this is my final quick fire. It's not really a quick fire here, but what is your favorite creepy urban legend or ghost story from the city or your hometown or the city that you're from?
Well, the creepiest one I would
Yeah.
probably say is the Rotherham grooming gang. I don't know if
The
anyone's heard about that,
the
but if they
Rotherham what?
you've not heard about the grooming gangs in Rotherham?
No. Is this like a new thing or is this like a old legend?
It's probably like 10, 15 years old. But if anyone wants to Google Rotherham grooming gangs, then that's probably the creepiest from my
That sounds
hometown.
like that sounds like something that's real though and is really disturbing.
It is,
Oh.
and creepy as hell. Oh, are you wanting like a fake story or something, or
Well,
like
like a
another?
myth or like a legend. It's like is your town famous for any like strange ghost stories or like if you were a traveler and you loved kind of haunted
Mm,
places or weird,
mm.
I don't know, cryptozoology or myths and legends, do you have anything in Rotherham?
Yeah, I mean, well, I used to go to this pub called the Charters Arms, and I used to go when I was about 15. I used to be in quite a few bands, and when you went into there, especially the bar area,
Mhm.
there'd be loads of spirits.
Ones that you drink.
Sorry. I'm just being a twat. What can I
Oh my
say?
God, this is like a dad joke. And I got it though. I got it
Oh, I don't even think I'm a dad, and if I am, then
though. You don't
that's the
think
last.
so?
I don't think so, but that's the last thing the world needs is another one of me running about. Fuck's sake,
Well, on that note, thank you so much for joining me, being my first, maybe not necessarily the one that's going to go out first, but being my
No,
first
you need a
victim.
good one. You need a good one to go out first,
No,
Danny.
I think
Don't
this
give
would
this.
be fun. I mean, I planned to have the Hex Girls out first, although we haven't recorded it, so we'll see. We'll see. This could be the first one.
Who are the Hex Girls? Who's the
The
Hex
Hex Girls
Girls?
is my girl band.
Oh shit! I did not know
We're not called
that.
the Hex Girls. We're just called Hex. We just call Hex. We've just released a Christmas song. So, I mean,
What's it called?
this
The Christmas
Christmas,
song.
this
It's called
Christmas.
This Christmas.
Yeah,
Nice.
you can
I'll
find
check
it
it
on
out.
all good streaming platforms.
Well, can I find it on Apple Music?
Yes.
Well, I will follow you
I'll
on
send
Apple
you a
Music.
link. I'll send you a link.